Hey, what's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing well and having a great day. Here in the last 24 hours, I've had several people share video footage with me of a UFO off the coast of Yemen, right out in here, either in the Gulf of Aden or in the Red Sea. In this part of the world, there was an incident that just occurred involving a drone, a HELLFIRE missile, and some sort of an unidentified flying object. And there was video footage that was shared with Congress, article dated September 9th of 2025 from over here at foxnews.com. It goes on to say HELLFIRE missile bounces off of mysterious orb in stunning UAP footage shown to Congress. Well, I was asked if I could analyze this video footage, and I've been analyzing the footage all morning long. And I did find something different as I went in close and adjusted the lighting and used different formats and different techniques. I did pull forward something that wasn't seen earlier. Let's take a look. Here we go. Off the coast of Yemen, this is the original video in original format. I haven't done anything to this. I wanted to share with you guys what I was working with. And here we go. This is footage from a drone off the coast of Yemen. There's the unidentified object. You're going to see right there the missile come in from the 10 o'clock position over here on the left. It appears to make impact with the UFO, and something happens after impact. It was being described as the impact caused debris to fall off of the unknown flying object off the coast of Yemen. But as we went in and took a closer look, it's way more than just debris. In fact, it wasn't debris at all. So once again, this is the original video in original format. This is something else here going on. I'm not quite sure what that was. That was, again, above water off the coast of Yemen. So here we go, modified view of the same video, same object. As you can see, it's a different color because I'm using a much different technique. I'm trying to pull forward features and see anything that we didn't see in the original video. So here we go again. You're going to see the missile come in from the left at around the 10 o'clock position, make impact right there with the UFO, and you appear to see what looks like debris falling off the thing, like it broke into several pieces. Well, as you're going to see very clearly, there's no doubt that those were not just random pieces of debris. Those were flying objects that were knocked out of the center of that UFO off the coast of Yemen that became right there aerodynamic and started following the UFO as it continued on. It survived the direct hit right there from a HELLFIRE missile. How does something like that happen? I want to show you guys something real quick. A remark that was made to Congress yesterday about the HELLFIRE missile. Here we go. Are you aware of anything in the U.S. arsenal that can split a HELLFIRE missile like this and do whatever that blob thing did and then keep going? And the witnesses testified that no U.S. technology is capable of surviving such a strike. So continuing on, this thing, whatever it was, should not have survived that impact. But as you can see, it did survive, and 3 objects came out of the inside of the UFO. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. At first, from a distance, you would think, okay, following the strike from the HELLFIRE missile, it probably broke pieces off of the UFO, UAP, whatever it was. Here we're going in super, super tight. You can see I'm using a different format. It's turned the UFO black. It wasn't necessarily black. I'm not quite sure what color it was because primarily we were working with black and white footage the entire time. This format, however, did turn it black. I zoomed in as close as I could. The clarity remained pretty decent. I managed to increase the clarity just a little bit, but right there it is up close. And you're going to see the strike right there. Notice again what happens right there following the impact. Those things there, whatever they are, appear to have been knocked from the inside of this thing. And as you're going to see when we zoom in close, and you can tell right here, they're all the same size and same shape. Look at that. What are those things? Those are not just random pieces of debris. Those are some sort of intelligently designed objects. Here we go again, slow motion, zoomed in, there they are. And the primary UFO remained intact. It released 3 more smaller ones that ended up traveling behind it. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It is what it is. Right there it is. But what is it? What were they? They appeared to survive. And as the witness testified, nothing should have been able to survive that direct impact. here we go. Different format. I pulled out just a little bit to show the HELLFIRE making contact with the UAP. This is a much different format. And we're going to zoom in a little bit closer, take a couple of looks at the HELLFIRE making impact. It does indeed impact what appears to be the back half of this unknown object flying off the coast of Yemen. Right there it makes impact. You can see it knocks it off course. And as you're going to see, somehow or another, right there following the impact, these three objects appear in the sky following the primary object right there. So the primary target turned into not only one, but four targets now. There's 1, 2, 3, now 4. It survived the strike. And the gentleman that testified before Congress said, nothing that we have should have survived that strike. And it turned into 4, 3 smaller ones, and then the main primary one continued on. This one here turned out pretty good. You can see that these things are the same shape and same size. Look at that. And this one here started to glow for whatever reason, almost as if it had some sort of an energy field around it. Maybe it was some sort of a propulsion system. This one here started glowing, and then that one there started glowing. The smaller things you see are reflections off the top of the water. Those things definitely had density. Let me go back to that one right there. That one right there turned out pretty good. You can see those things clearly are the same shape. Those aren't random pieces of debris, guys. So whatever that missile impacted, it didn't seem to affect it hardly at all. And apparently it was carrying a payload of these things, whatever they were. 3 came out. It may have been carrying more. We can see 3 for sure. And they appear to be aerodynamic as they started following the primary object. Here I have it in ultra slow motion, pretty much frame by frame. I was looking for anything else that may have shown up in the video that we didn't see. And right there is where it started glowing. And then these start glowing almost as if they had some sort of a power source. Highly unusual. You can't make this stuff up. So yes, there was an event that occurred off the coast of Yemen. And whatever this thing was that was spotted off the coast of Yemen took a direct impact from a HELLFIRE missile and survived. What type of technology could this have possibly been? And it wasn't just one piece of technology. As you can see from this video footage here, this enhanced video footage, it wasn't just one object. It appears to have been multiple objects. There were smaller objects of the same size, shapes, and dimensions inside of the primary object. So there's the analysis, guys, of the super rare video footage taken from the coast of Yemen of an unidentified flying object that took a direct impact from a HELLFIRE missile. Thanks for watching. Have a super day and be safe out there.
I want to cue up a video that I've been given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe, this was taken October 30th of 2024. This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen. You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a HELLFIRE missile. That you cannot see that drone. And so I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll see exactly what it does.
This week, we're hosting a free trading and investing workshop right here in Scottsdale. Inside this workshop, you'll learn you don't need to be a Wall Street.
This is when it zoomed out, so you can still see it traveling. So Mr. Knapp, do you have have you heard about, events like this occurring? And what information might you have?
I have heard about events like this. I have heard about this event. Jeremy Corbell and I talked about it in one of our episodes a while back. We did not have the video, though. There are servers where there's a whole bank of these kind of videos that Congress has not been allowed to see, that the public hasn't been allowed to see. Occasionally, some of that stuff gets out in the wild, and it comes our way. It should be going to you. The public should be seeing this stuff. And why you're not allowed to, I don't know. But that's a HELLFIRE missile smacking into that UFO and just bounced right off. And it kept going.
It kept going, and it looks like the debris was taken with it.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
So
what
again,
flies like that?
Again, I'm not going to speculate what it is, but the question is, why are we being blocked from this information consistently? I want to ask this just question. How in the world, this is the document, I want to enter this in for the record if it hasn't already been entered, Madam Chair. The document that you provided on thread 3, this is a huge file. How in the world did you smuggle this out of Russia?
Carefully.
In your socks?
I don't think I want to be really specific about it because I might have to go back there and get some more sometime. Although,
Okay.
No, that'd be crazy to do that. Well, I took the top pages off that were stamped with a security signature, and I carried them out on my person. But the rest of them I just threw in my suitcase and threw some caviar in there as a distraction as well, and hoped for the best. Otherwise, I'd be a citizen of Siberia right now.
And you had, you reported James Lakatsky came to you with government possession of NHI craft and how they ultimately gained entry. Can you testify to the veracity of that claim?
Dr. Lakatsky is an honorable man who served most of his career with the DIA, a very trusted, high-level rocket scientist and intelligence analyst who inspired the OSAP program, as I said earlier. And in full disclosure, I've co-written 2 books with him. He dropped this on myself and our other co-author out of the blue. And it took 14 months for us to get DOPSR approval for him to release 2 sentences on that. He said this craft, we had managed to get inside of it. It had no wings, no rotor, no tail. It had no fuel tanks. They didn't know how it flew or how it was operated. It clearly looked like it was aerodynamic, but he would not go further. He's a by-the-book guy, and until he gets clearance to say more about that, I don't think we're going to hear much more. But it's not ours. It wasn't ours. We didn't make it. We didn't know who made it and how it was built and how it operated. We've got at least one. And I don't know, I think that's enough confirmation that we do have recovered discs and materials.
Lastly, Mr. Borland, in the classified realm, have you been exposed to undeniable confirmation of NHI technology? And then my second question is BAE Systems involved in any way with reverse engineering exploitation of non-human intelligence craft?
I wish I loved my smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish money was.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a conversation to skip for that. Whether I'm legally even allowed to answer that, and whether you're even allowed to hear it, sir.
Okay. Again, you can sense our frustration. And so I just want to thank you for coming forward. We will continue to fight because, look, this is about making sure that this government belongs to the people and restoring the republic the way it was intended to be. Madam Chair, I also have further witnesses of courageous individuals. It was given to me by Dr. Stephen Greer, including Michael Herrera and his testimony. We have Roderick Castle and his testimony, Randy Anderson, his testimony, Stephen Digna, and others, 3 others, all saying similar things to what the witnesses today have said, and I would like to enter that into the record as well.
No objection.
You know, at this point, I think it's clear from the hearing that there's advanced technologies that are taking place in our airspace. You know, the question is, and I posed it in one of the previous hearings, is it ours, is it theirs, or is it otherworldly? There may not be a silver bullet at the moment, but when you look back through the hearing and the evidence that's been presented, if you're going to point the American people to one piece of evidence to start their journey on this topic, what would you suggest, sir?
One piece of evidence, I would start with this hearing, in the first hearing. There is no evidence.
But is there a specific, exactly, but is there a specific evidence or footage or document that you think lends extreme credibility to what we're discussing today?
I would say this new video we're seeing today is exceptional evidence that we're dealing with something.
With the kinetic?
Yes.
Mr. Wiggins?
Sir, I'd have to say that if just the average person here in America looked at absolutely everything that has come across television, the internet, etc., you can't tell yourself that 100% of what's being recorded is fake or false. You have to, at some point, understand that there's something else out there.
Well, I mean, and you bring an interesting point. You know, in the law enforcement community, anytime you're conducting an investigation, you're always looking at the totality of the circumstances. You're looking at all the evidence and how they piece together. And so that would be my, advice to the American people, that this is a journey that is just beginning from a congressional perspective, but you have decades of data, some of it not real, much of it is, but thanks to Chairwoman Luna, we're now presenting this to the American people. And I think this latest video from Mr. Burleson is something that should get everyone pause. When you see the 3 orbs that drop, was that in a defensive posture, or was that in an offensive posture? And what capabilities did those orbs have that we, quite frankly, may not have? Mr. Knapp?
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking about it. Meet base.
Now let's see what the late David Blair was talking about. What's up, family? Because, seeing what's going on now, is it what they call a UFO? Which, I call ships. Is it the Anunnaki? Who's in them ships? Are they melanated beings in them ships? Who's really in them ships? So that's the thing that's going on now. Don't nobody know, but we have an idea of who's flying them ships. So with that, what I just showed, let's look and see what my brother, to the late David Blair, got to say about them ships. Let's see.
And all I needed was that verification to turn my life around. I really didn't care at that time whether anybody else believed it or not. Into 4 student dorms and faculty dorms that face onto a plaza. Well, I saw these 3 moving objects, and they came down to no more than, I guess, 800 feet above me. If you've ever seen anything like that, you'll never forget it. And it was just watch the skies for the next week. An extreme natural, which was not, and was over here to make, I think, about 60. If there was anything to this concept about UFOs, or what they were called flying saucers, then it meant that all of my little education and all the things that the church had told me, all the things that mother and father had told me were wrong, because they were not believers in UFOs. If there was such a thing, I'd read, and I'm going to go into with this because it will let you understand me a little bit better. I'm a very frank person, a very honest person, and I do not back down. Sometimes I should. I'll try to walk away from a situation if necessary. But I have principles. I don't like to compromise them. Anytime I have compromised them in my life, I've gotten in trouble, and I don't intend to get in trouble for doing the right thing any longer. If I do the wrong thing, that's one thing, but not for doing the right thing. So I take strong stance. Some people like that, some people don't. I really don't care. I try to tell the truth. Now, with that in mind, I had an incident, 59 and 60, by which I had a big decision as to whether to go very corporate or to get into the field of ufology, UFOs. If there was such a thing, I'd read a number of books They don't have the bombardment that they now have on TV and the media, whereas it was more or less a kind of a clandestine thing. I was 17 years old at that time, and just completing, I was always smart, if you say, and I was just getting out of undergrad school and about to see where I was going to embark. But one thing stood in my mind. If there was anything to this concept about UFOs, or what they were called flying saucers, then it meant that all of my little education and all the things that the church had told me, all the things that mother and father had told me were wrong, because they were not believers in these things. And if they were, to me, it meant that someplace on earth or someplace somewhere, there were people with intelligence that dwarfed ours, and those are the people I'd want to learn from. Not somebody who is just a little bit more intelligent than I, but a person that could do this kind of thing. And plus the fact, it meant there must be some kind of a hidden history that abounded that I was not privy to, and I always wanted to know whatever I could to make me a rounded person. I had the opportunity of going to a UFO symposium at that time in Chicago. It was all I could do to scrape together the money for it, because I was not making a lot of money at that time. And I met a man by the name of George Adamski. George Adamski was a Polish man who was holding a seminar there. I just about crashed into his press again when he was addressing the press and doing his press forum. He lied and said, well, I know the young man, it's okay, or else they would have arrested me. And then we spent some 5 hours in dissertation. This man had just gotten off of a plane from Yugoslavia, interesting enough, and was over here to make, I think, about 16 principal cities. That was the first one in his entourage. To make a long story short, he answered a lot of my questions to the depth that no one else had been able to do so. And then he gave me a challenge. He said to come back the next day as part of this forum he was giving. I did come back the next day. I told him I didn't have any more money, and of course I had a girlfriend at that time and a lot of other friends, but none of them wanted to go on these forays. Through him, I met two very interesting men. They were both black men at that time. One was wearing an extreme natural, which was not the case in '60, and the other has close-cropped hair, looked like a corporate entity, if you would. And not only did they read my mind, predict the future by 15 minutes, so I didn't have to wait to see if they were truthfully able to do this or not, able to make me lose time. I lost about 10 minutes only in the time I understand. But then also gave me some answers that no other people had been able to do, and then gave me a challenge also. They said to watch the skies for the next week. I asked them, were such things as UFOs and this kind of thing, and they said, well, just watch the skies for the next week, if you would. Well, I had always watched the skies. I hadn't seen anything that was mysterious to me. That next week in the city of Chicago, I was going to the University of Chicago at that time, and what they call the quads. Quads are simply the rear end of 4 student dorms and faculty dorms that face onto a plaza. Well, I saw these 3 moving objects, and they came down to no more than, I guess, 800 feet above me. If you've ever seen anything like that, you'll never forget it. And it was a close-eye view of 3 flying saucers back in 1960. It was a very interesting phenomena. I questioned myself about it, and I really didn't talk about it other than to 3 people that happened to see it with me for 10 years. I didn't because I didn't feel anybody would believe me. I really didn't feel that I could benefit from it, understanding what was happening to the people that did talk about it. And all I needed was that verification to turn my life around. I really didn't care at that time whether anybody else believed it or not, because I was unbelieving until all these things happened to me. Not being a hypocrite, I had stated that if I could ever find out that these things were real, and what more than to see them or think that you saw them, and I do think that I saw them. And one, by the way, made a motion that just was, they were sitting 3 abreast, say about 800, 850 feet in the air, guesstimation. One just said, boom, it lit up, got brighter. By the way, too, as they hovered, they waved like a feather on water, or again, on a pond or a stream. And then one got kind of bright and swooped. It was just as though it was there one time and then gone. It just showed, I can't even calculate speed. The thing was gone as far as I could see, like a flash. The second one began to make right-angle turns up and low and spun as it was doing this. It took those oscillations, I guess, about almost 6 minutes, and it went out slowly out to the other direction. In the meantime, I kept trying to look at it as it was going away back at the main one, because showing how fast one of them had gotten away from me, I didn't want the other to go before I was able to really give a keen sight to it. To make a long story short on all of this, the last one, the other one just made these right angle turns and so on. The other one just slowly went backwards, retreated from me, went up, I don't know how far, but not too far out, but mainly away from me, showing me this 3 distinct motion capabilities and aerodynamic concepts that they were able to do. With that, of course, there have been so many miracles in my life from that time on, but never have I made contact verbally with anybody else that I felt was either alien or extraterrestrial. And to me, an alien is anything that's intelligent in the cosmos. It could be a grasshopper, it could be a spider, it could be a humanoid form, whatever, as long as it's intelligent. It would definitely be alien to us. To me, extraterrestrial, and as it was explained to me, is an intelligent being that has had a liaison either on this planet or a planet like this one, and therefore can be sympathetic or empathetic to what we're going through. I have not had such a contact knowingly since. If they've been there, they haven't announced it. And all I have done is to see what has happened as a result of that, which increased psychic power with me. Just miraculous things have happened with me, and that's it. I give that as a preface because it will probably help you to better understand what I'm going to say and better understand me. Now, whether or not you are believers is not important. I'm not here to sell UFOs. I give that because it will show you the very strong conviction and the very strong eminence that changed my life around. Now, we are faced at this time with some very interesting challenges, shall we say. We have a financial system that's in the process of being changed with the extreme right-wing Congress, and I'm not going to stay real political, but politics are still the backbone of this nation, and they can't be skirted, because what happens in Congress and what happens with all of those so-called servants and political machinations that surround that happens to you, from taxes on or down. We're finding cutbacks in education. We're finding cutbacks in Medicaid and Medicare. We're finding cutbacks in a lot of programs because there's not enough money for them. We're finding the Social Security system being challenged, or possibly even some say bankrupt. We're finding our banking system, again, backed not entirely by the FDIC as it used to be. We're finding the Federal Reserve making laws that nobody seems to be able to circumvent, and they are controlling our lives, our taxes, everything that we do. Based on all of that now, we're finding that the Cold War supposedly has ceased. The Cold War, of course, was supposedly where we were dumping, meaning we, the United States of America, lots of money into to keep communism from usurping and taking advantage of us and usurping a democratic free form of society, a republic, if you would. We also are finding that those money that used to be spent for that are now free to be spent other ways, but yet the monies aren't there because there's a deficit and we can't balance the budget. Now, I make just one statement to you as a lay person, secular as I would be in the ministry, but as a person who is not a politician. How in the world can we ever balance a budget if the Federal Reserve charges $1 for every dollar that they put into circulation? Just that alone will show you that a balanced budget is stupid and silly and should not even be questioned, because as long as $1 is being charged by entity outside of the United States government to print the money, then it means that all money printed will have taxes on it, and that is not what a republic is supposed to have happen. But in addition to all of that, we're finding again that there are certain black projects. Now, the black projects is a clandestine, nefarious overview of having Congress not appropriate money to the Defense Department or to armed forces or any other research arm, and yet they are spending literally billions, if not trillions of dollars to research into items that are not authorized by the United States government, Congress, but programs, concepts like time travel, like not the stealth bomber, but Avro cars, or the Avro plant that was blew up 60 or 59 or something like that, killing some 39 people, injuring 19, a joint project between the Canadian government and the United States government to build electromagnetic saucers all the way back there. They have projects now supposedly on the moon, projects on Mars, projects in time travel. And again, if you hear about the Philadelphia experiment, which I think has made movie history by being constantly circulated over 40 years' time, and about the Montauk Project, then you can understand that there are a lot of things going on that are not being corporately funded, not being funded by the government, but still in all are receiving monies. You hear nefarious things about drugs and the people, and especially the inner city youth in about 164 major cities that are drug users, and that the drug thing must be stopped. How can a drug thing be stopped when the government seemingly sanctions it, or cannot find out what everybody on any city blocks knows, where the local pusher is? To put people in jail who consume it and not people who bring it in is ridiculous. If I went on to point out all the things that the United States is guilty of, you'd all end there either crying or hating me for telling the truth. I'll say all you have to do is read certain books, A Higher Form of Killing. Waxman and Paxman came out of England. Read again about the poison needle, Eustace Mullins. Just read about the nefarious things that are being done by this country, not by the citizens. Because I find whether black, white, yellow, or brown, most citizens are not aware of this. And those that do seem to know about it talk about it in hushed terms about why is this happening. It's as though we're led by force or by someone who just is intent on being bad, negative, and no good. Now, if that's trite, then understand that triteness is the basis for goodness. Because when we are children and are not so conformed and brainwashed, we understand right and wrong. We understand basic things we should not do. Then we're told either we can get away with it or we're told it's not bad, and therefore those minds now being sublimated now follow on this new type of teaching authority. Used to be moral authority rested in the church, and non-secular authority rested in the institutions of higher learning. I often wonder what institutions of higher learning are now teaching, because to me they're professing things now that only seem to get us in trouble. The true research scientists, it comes up with cures for cancers, comes up with cures for AIDS, or proffers those. Their laboratories are bombed. Their papers are, sometimes they're in prison, again, like in the case of Wilhelm Reitz. It just goes on and on. So I'm saying this. In case you wonder why some of the things that I'm going to get into tonight may be happening or may happen, look no further than your own mirror. Either you've allowed this to happen because you think it's funny, or because of naivety, or you know others that you should correct and you're afraid to approach them because they might hurt you, or you have no soul yourself about what is right and wrong. Everybody that allows things to go on that should not go on, for either fear of safety of self, or for naivety, or for money profit, therefore has to pay when the chips come down. We've done a lot of wrong here. This country is far from being not guilty of a number of terrible, what can I say, just terrible things, we'll leave it like that. At the same time, there are far worse countries and far worse regimes that run those countries. But now, with what is called the New World Order, these things are being amalgamated. The good now becomes the bad, and the bad becomes the not so bad. Things can now be allowed as long as this one rule can come under the guidance now of the government forms that will let one world exist, one means of distribution, manufacture, one means of production, and one world card. Because the end result of the New World Order is to have one world card, no money systems, all monetary systems obfuscated. We are finding now that there are old plagues that are now coming around to become new scourges. They talk about Lambia Guardia, or Guardia Lambia. They talk about Ebola. They're talking about, again, and I have a quote from this paper here, if I can find it. I think they call it the Betty Guy or Day Guy, a new disease coming out of Mexico, out of the Mato Grosso, where they're cutting down the trees. They have viruses of all sorts, and of course the AIDS pandemic not only threatens blacks, but it threatens not only homosexuals, but it threatens heterosexual people from all walks of life. We're finding again that the ozone, the hole that supposedly started over one of the poles of the United States, of the world, has now spread not only over the United States, but over almost all major continents. This hole in the ozone allows ultraviolet UF rays to come through, which are very detrimental to people who have very little skin pigmentation, as well as to people who have a lot of skin pigmentation. What this is causing is melanomas and carcinomas, melanomas of the skin, carcinomas and leukemias of the blood. It is causing the body, which is not able to take in this new ultraviolet energy, this new energy rays, to burn, to fry, It causes, again, an imbalance within the glandular systems against the things that are secreted. It causes, again, as I say, the blood to become toxic. And once we reach a crisis, toxemia, disease and imbalance always sets in. We have as though the planet was actually turning on us. They found that at Chernobyl, and I don't think there's anyone in here that has not heard of Chernobyl, again, that gaseous cloud, whatever it was made up of, drifted away. And there are reports of devastating things that this cloud, which is not completely dissipated, is still able to do. Of course, the Russian government denies that, Interpol denies that, and the UN scientific community only gives lip service to it, and not before the public press, which never repeats the idea that some atomic cloud could maybe be drifting over, causing all kind of devastation. They're finding, of course, now that on the moon, where they supposedly spent 15 trips to, and I doubt that very seriously, that they have found pyramids on the moon. They don't talk about it. They found round dome structures on the moon. They found an OB-17 bomber on the moon. They find corpses of what looks like human people, again, on the moon. They found, even with Virgil Grissom and many of the other astronauts, Neil Armstrong, and so, that reported that they had been paced and had seen UFOs or some type of unidentified flight objects, not only on the surface of the moon, but pacing them on their journeys to the moon when they actually went. If you remember, again, back in 1959, 1960, when President Kennedy came into power, one of the things that got him incorporated into the United States head congressional person was the fact that he said, we must have a race to space that we must win, meaning the United States must win, that we must beat the Russians to the moon. Then, having put all kind of money, changed again Cape Canaveral to Cape Kennedy, poured all kind of resources and monetary and brain power into this, the Russian launched 2 weeks before the supposed United States launch, they launched Sputnik. Then, nothing was ever heard about what happened to the Russian launch. Nothing was ever heard, and all you heard was the United States' prowess and progress into the space race. What did happen was very interesting. In my reading of various books and so on, I'll give you a book list later on if you like it. It's yay long. But at any rate, was that a female by the name of Yuri someone, being one of the cosmonauts, had stated that the Russian launch was blasted out of the sky by an electrical beam, possibly what they now call a beam weapon. I have no idea. But having been so blasted, many of her comrades were killed and vaporized on the spot. Others were hanging in space where their capsule had been blasted. And as she reported, still on an open mic in her helmet, I guess down to the Russian base again, they are collecting them. This is something she was sobbing, and the last word supposedly, and now they're coming for me. I repeat, and now they're coming for me. Now this would make me feel, being a layperson and being ignorant and not able to have the deviousness of some of the newspaper reporters and AP and so on like this, that this woman had been blasted out of her spaceship by something in the sky or from the earth, and that whatever it was able to now transverse space and pick up her hanging in the air in space comrades and herself. One thing is very interesting. After that, Russia stopped so much the race for space and in space and started getting into metaphysical research. They used to talk about secret projects behind the Iron Curtain, psychic projects behind the Iron Curtain. Uri Geller pops up again, and many other people who were supposedly able to use telekinesis by moving objects, mind control, teleportation possibly, they talk about. Many of the things that are now what we see on the TV screens and in the movies, what we call New Age projects, they started back there in the 60s and in the 70s. There was said that Brawatunchek and another place, somebody may help me with, another big Russian city, as late as the 70s and 80s had UFO landings there, both in a theme park and also near the Russian embassy in Prague, per se. There supposedly have been a lot of so-called alien contact with the United States. Rumors had been that Eisenhower, rumors had been that Truman had all had UFO contacts, and also personnel that supposedly had driven these ships. Landing supposedly at Edwards Air Force Base, at Lackland Air Force Base. a couple of the other ones again out in California here. All kind of rumors about new, as they say, personnel carriers that hovered in the air, and the land hover, the air vehicle that now was able to go over water and land was then introduced. Of course, nothing about the stealth at that time. It has been said that many people have been abducted on Earth. I don't think you can turn on your TVs now for one solid week without hearing about some UFO abduction, either supposedly in a fictionalized drama or the X-Files or Extraordinaire or whatever again. We're seemingly now blessed or plagued with everything about Deep Space Nine, about Star Wars 5030, about Star Wars this and that. Everything now is about space, about aliens, about new inventions, about dimensional frequencies, about life on other worlds and in our solar system. Why? To me, it's because we're being prepared for something. I don't think that all those billions of dollars on network TV are sent up there for nothing. Something they're preparing for, whether it be actually extraterrestrial, alien, or government-controlled, something is happening. If you've noticed again, over the last 10 years, at Christmas, the best sales now are for reptoids and dinoids. Toys, Mutant Ninja Turtle movies come out, and at one time, kids couldn't even stand reptiles in the main. Now they're loving reptiles. Now they're loving Dino, and they're loving all kind of other characters that, of course, not only are sometimes capable of dimensionalizing, but look much different than we do. Interesting enough, we have problems here with the races with just 4 or 5 different colors, and yet now kids are accepting green, scaly monsters and fish people and amphibians. It's true. In the churches, we go here tomorrow on Sundays and Saturdays again, and we say how we love each other, and we can't get along for 5 days during the week. But yet, we can see and sympathize and empathize with E.T., the extraterrestrial, when he got hurt, and then we can go out and lynch somebody else, or we can go out and give poison to somebody else, or we can look the other way when somebody else is falsely accused of a crime. We have a very interesting civilization here. And with this new world order, this civilization is going to get tighter and more chummier. And some of the people that we're beginning to be chummy with, I don't particularly think are the chums we should be running with. That's a personal opinion. As adults, you can make your own. But I will say this. Many of these research scientists know exactly where some of these Ebola are coming from. They know where the Lambia-Garda is increasing from. They know through the World Health Organization how they gave in Zaire shots of smallpox vaccines, which already were outlawed through the same august organization on the international market. They understand the hepatitis B vaccine that was contaminated again with AIDS, so they gave it to Greenwich Village on 2 occasions, 78, 79, 72, 73, to homosexuals. They understand that right out here in San Francisco, the Coast Guard frigate that made 8 passes back and forth, spraying bacteriologicals into the air so that they floated over San Francisco. San Francisco does have a large homosexual population that has no reason to try and ostracize or hurt homosexuals, because there are other people living there too. So if they only hated homosexuals for some reason, then what about the heterosexual population? What about black, white, yellow, and brown, the Asian community that is there? Understand again, at one of the most heavily traversed areas of the Pennsylvania Turnpike, where you can go east, west, north, or south in our United States, during the summer, when people had air conditioning units on, tops down if they were convertibles, windows down, they sprayed bacteriologicals from unmarked black helicopters. They did it in 78, 79, they did it in 83, 84, and who knows how many other times that I have not been able to document through extensive research. We heard that the American Legion, Legionnaires, were meeting in a hotel in Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, through the ductwork again, either induced by some accident or otherwise, Legionnaire's disease popped up. But before that time, you heard about, what do they call this? I'm not referring my notes now. I'm doing this all from my mental capability, which sometimes gets limited. They had, again, simplex, herpes. Herpes 1, herpes 2, herpes 3, herpes simplex, and then you didn't hear anything more, but you heard about Legionnaires. Then you didn't hear anything more after about 8.5 months about Legionnaires. You heard about AIDS. And of course, there's no tie-in. There's nothing showing, again, why the yeast infection of candidiasis and candida now suddenly has gone crazy within the system. And by the way, I'm going to give you possible remedies and helpers for these things. I can't say cure, because nowadays to say cure, you over-infractionalize, you step into the world of the allopath. So I can say possibly things that may help, or remedies for these things. But suddenly now, the government cannot control, the FDA cannot control. We're just full of all kind of plagues and viruses by which the immune system, the shots we used to get, don't seem to be as effective as they used to be. The treatments that we used to have don't seem to be making inroads against these new viruses. I simply say if they're laboratory designed, and I think they are from research, if they're asked for, paid for, and then delivered, then they're specifically made genetically to do exactly what they're doing to the people that they're doing it to. The only trouble is we always seem to mistake the Creator because these people are soulless and spiritualists and don't understand what the Creator can do because they think that they're gods. So as a consequence, we're going to have to pay for that, and they are too. They're going to have to find out that they're not God, and that the very things that they create in their power struggle and their power-hungry mentalities can come back against them, which is doing now in the United States, and will continue until they change. And since I think they're so nefarious, they won't change, and we're in for it. Let me again just read you part of an article here. It says, "Old New Plagues, a Latin Scourge." It's not just a Latino scourge, it is now a United States scourge. I'm going to just briefly jump through this. Brazil, it starts with a fever like 100 less deadly plagues. Then comes a growing weakness. The skin turns yellow. In the abdomen, internal bleeding begins. Soon blood pours from the body, through the eyes, and in the endless black vomit. In 9 out of 10 cases, the liver dissolves and the victim dies. No, it's not Ebola. It's Labria black fever. Just one of a half-dozen deadly and little understood viral diseases emerging from the rainforest of Latin America. They were told that those rainforests are one of our chief ways of oxygenating the Western Hemisphere. They don't care. They needed more hotels. Half the hotels they have now are seasonal, and because of the typhoons and hurricanes, they're still losing tourists. But now you have to tear down some more. Let me go on with this one again to show if you can even look through this or what you would do given that kind of power. These power mad people don't seem to give a you-know-what. Let's go on with this again. People all the time are going into the jungle and coming back with strange fevers no one knows about, said Betsy Duary Thatcher, malaria specialist at Brazil's National Institute for Amazon Research in Manaus. If we started looking for them, we could isolate a new variety every week. A new variety every week. Viruses are the unknown frontier. I go on again. Perhaps never has the battle against disease looked so bleak as it does right now in Latin America and in the third world in general. New diseases are appearing at a frightening pace, researchers say. Even more disturbing, old scourges, once thought relegated to history, are making a comeback, particularly in Latin America. Tuberculosis is one of the things that they talk about. Malaria is another one that they talk about. Plasmodia, what is this? Plasmodia juicepartum parasite. Okay, and one of these Latin things, it simply means a parasite that can